In April of 2019, when the Detroit Red Wings announced that they were hiring Steve Eiserman as their next general manager, their fans were ecstatic and they had visions of Stanley Cups dancing in their heads. Now, 6 years later, the Red Wings are mired in a 9-year playoff drought. And it's time to ask the big question, should the Detroit Red Wings pass the GM job over to Kris Draper? Hey everybody, welcome in to Clearing the Benches, your one-stop shop for hockey content. If you go ahead, hit your subscription button right now, you'll be sure to be in on all of our future videos. Well, in 2019, when the Red Wings announced Yzerman was coming back, I was one of those people. I thought, wow, this is going to be perfect. I looked at the guys that he had drafted down in Tampa Bay. Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Point. Two of those three guys could be going to the Hall of Fame. And depending on what Point does the rest of his career, he may be joining them there. When I look at the reason that they haven't been in the playoffs for the past 9 years, coaching comes to the forefront. Why? When you're a new GM, would you bring in guys that no one really knows about except for you? It's like, you're trying to outsmart everybody else in the room, and then it doesn't work out in a big way. Jeff Blashill. And then after that disaster, they followed that up with Derek Lalonde. Again, maybe these guys had big-time success previously, but it was not as a head coach in the NHL. Todd McClellan, now he's got that experience as a head coach in the NHL. They bought him in last year, second half of the season. They played better down the stretch. So maybe this upcoming season won't be as bad as last season. But when I look at the moves that Yzerman has made, first of all, they bought in Kane and it didn't work out. And now they just re-signed Kane again today for another year at $3.5 million. Why? When I look at the Red Wings lineup, I see Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, and that's about it. I'm not as high on Moritz Seider as everybody else is. He's lazy in his defensive end, and I think because of his size and his look, a lot of people are like, oh, this guy, he's better than he really is. Look at his numbers. His numbers have gone down ever since he's come into the NHL. And he didn't really have such great numbers to start off with. So, again, when I look at the guys that Yzerman has bought in, some of the guys he bought in free agency-wise, trades, Tarasenko, Andrew Kopp, he paid him big bucks, and he got nothing out of it. Tyler Mott, JT Compher, Craig Smith. These guys were all either busts or way past their prime, and they just were not producing anymore. But Yzerman's at it again. Just today, on the first day of free agency, when there's all these big crazy names out there, he expects the Red Wings fans to get excited. They bought Patrick Kane back. Snoozer. Then they bring in James Van Riemsdyk. Maybe if this was 10 years ago and you were getting the Toronto Van Riemsdyk, you could get a little excited. And then John Gibson, he's 36 years old and he's been banged up probably since he's 26 years old. And nothing for nothing, but I would think unless they're just bringing in Gibson so that they could try to use him as a bargaining chip at the trade deadline. Maybe they think he'll have, a decent first half of the season. Maybe he'll get 20 wins, 25 wins by the time the trade deadline rolls around. And maybe they think they can ship him off to a team like, Edmonton or Toronto or whoever's having goaltending problems in their in between the pipes there. But again, when you look at the guys that Yzerman's bought in, whether it's coaches or players, just none of them. They're all very underwhelming. And then after you saw what Kane did in New York, which was absolutely nothing, why would you think he was going to do something? And then he hasn't done anything since really. He's been in Detroit, and now you re-sign him again. So that's why I think it's time to turn the page to Kris Draper. And let's take a look at Draper. He's 54 years old. He is a 4-time Stanley Cup champ. That guy is a Detroit Red Wing through and through. All you got to do is go back to the big brawl they had with the Colorado Avalanche and the Lemieux incident. He knows this team just as well as Yzerman does. He has been the director of scouting over the past 6 years. And just like a guy like Yzerman, he played in over 1,000 games for the Detroit Red Wings. So he knows this franchise in and out. And I think if you made the announcement, maybe you're going to bump up Yzerman to some other position so it doesn't look like he's getting demoted. If you were to announce that Kris Draper was taking over as the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, I think their fan base would be very, very happy. They love that Draper, mentality. He was just go through a wall to win type of guy, and that's what the Red Wings fans are looking at. When you look at what the Red Wings have got coming up in the future, not all of Yzerman's picks have been busts, although there's been some pretty good ones there. I think guys like Max Plant and Michael Nygaard, and also Axel Sandin Pellikka, Marco Kasper, they could be a big piece of the Red Wings' future if they all pan out to play to their potential. And I think a guy like Draper, because he's got the pedigree, 4-time Cup champ, and he did it all in Detroit. When you're bringing guys in, you're saying to them, hey, this is, Mr. Detroit Red Wing. You're getting him up there, with like Gordie Howe and Yzerman, as far as like the term that he's been in Detroit, his accomplishments, and how he's thought of in the fan base. So today we're asking the big question, is it time for the Detroit Red Wings to pass the GM job over to Kris Draper? We here at Clearing the Benches think definitely yes. What do you say? Let me know it down in the comments section. Let me know if you think there's another guy that the Red Wings should hire as their GM instead. If you could, please like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And as we always do here at Clearing the Benches, let them know you're out there.